What's up, Ocean? You got Matt here, and today I'm bringing you a guide on how to use Clodsire in competitive Pokemon. This thing is an absolute monster defensively with an amazing type combination. So if you guys are excited for this video, then do me a favor and leave a like on the video to help us reach our like goal of 75 likes. Make sure to comment your thoughts on Clodsire in the comments below to have your chance to be named the winner of the comment of the day and have your comment appear on the screen right about now. And of course, guys, subscribe to the channel as well for more amazing Pokemon content and to help us reach our sub goal of 4,000 subscribers. Let's go ahead and jump on into it. Starting off with Clodsire's stat distribution, it's really interesting. It has an insanely high base HP of 130, but the rest of its stats are all mediocre or just bad. Its highest stat other than that is its 100 base special defense, and then it's 75 in its attack. You think that the giant sea monster, or giant swamp monster really, would have a higher base attack stat than 75, but hey, 75 is what it is. Its defense at base 60 is okay when you pair it with the 130 in its HP, but really it's not that impressive. It's got 45 base special attack, which is pretty terrible, and then 20 base speed, which is beyond bad. It's just not great overall, and its stat distribution in total is 430. That's not very good. There are Pokemon that are not fully evolved that have higher stats than this, and that's saying something. It does have a really good typing, however, of poison and ground, which is really useful in certain situations because number one, you're not only immune to toxic, but you also absorb toxic spikes on entry, and that's very valuable in a lot of situations. You have 4 weaknesses to ground, water, kind of, psychic, and ice, and you have resistances to fighting, rock, bug, fairy, and poison 4 times, while you're also immune to electric. So quite a few different resistances or immunities, and that's very useful to have on a Pokemon like Clodsire. However, the issue is right now, it doesn't resist the biggest and most insanely powerful offensive type in the game right now, and that's going to be Dark. Dark is by far the best type in the game at this point in time offensively. Even defensively, it's kind of crazy, so I would be a little bit surprised to see how good Clodsire is going to be in at least the singles metagame. In VGC, the Ruin Pokemon aren't out yet. However, when they come around, Clodsire is going to lose a bit of popularity, I think, in that format. It does have 3 really solid abilities. It has abilities in Poison Point, which will have a 30% chance to poison your opponent when they make contact with you, and that can be really useful depending on certain situations, but its other 2 abilities are just so much better. It has an ability in Water Absorb, which gives you a water immunity while recovering back 1/4 of your HP every time you're hit with a water type attack, and that's so incredibly important to have because that allows you to open a potential Assault Vest set, and you don't have to be worrying about recovery because you can recover back on the switch in. Now, water isn't as good as it has been in previous generations, and that's because of the nerf to Scald in terms of the Pokemon that get access to it, but it still is a very strong ability nonetheless. Not as good as Storm Dream is in VGC, but it still is good nonetheless. Then there's Unaware, which is even better than Water Absorb in a lot of situations, but especially in singles. The way this ability works is that this Pokemon ignores the stat changes to any other opposing Pokemon when it is taking damage or doing damage. So if your opposing Cloyster, for example, has gone for a Shell Smash and is going for Icicle Spears on me, well, I'm only taking what would be neutral damage from that Pokemon instead of a +2 attack from that Pokemon. That's very good. It also is good because if my opponent has boosted with Iron defenses and I go for an Earthquake, it's going to be doing the same amount of damage as if it were at neutral. You just ignore any changes that your opponent has access to when you are attacking or taking damage, which is really valuable in a lot of situations. Now for some notable moves for this Pokemon. I'll be honest, its move pool is really diverse. The issue is, which moves are you going to run on your sets? Which are the best moves to have? And that's really hard to find out. It does have moves like Body Press, but it's only got base 60 in its defense, so not the best there. It does have Earthquake, of course, which is really nice, as well as moves like Bulldoze for a bit of more support options. It has access to Gunk Shot and Poison Jab for situations where you need an offensive Poison type attack. It has Heavy Slam because this Pokemon is pretty heavy, and thankfully it does get access to both Stone Edge and Rock Slide, so you can choose if you want spread damage or if you want to have more of a powerful hitting move. You have access to Mega Horn, which is good for Pokemon that are potential Dark types, Psychic types, Grass types, whatever the case might be, at a bit of an inaccurate accuracy. And then you have Liquidation for your Water type coverage, as well as Zen Headbutt for ways to hit opposing Poison type Pokemon that might be immune to your Ground type stat. Then there's also for status moves. This is where it really shines. It has access to Curse, which is amazing for a Pokemon with this high of a base HP stat and high of a special defense stat with a really low defense. So you can boost up your defense, your attack, reduce your speed, which doesn't matter at all because you only have base 20 speed, and you can start sweeping from there. And that's really useful to have because your opponents can't really set up alongside of you because you have access to Unaware. Or they can't go for water moves against you because you might have access to Water Absorb. So it plays really well with your abilities. Recover, obviously the nerf hurts this Pokemon, but it still takes big advantage of the Recover capabilities, which is awesome. It has access to Spikes, to Toxic Spikes, and to Stealth Rocks, all of which are incredibly important to have. And I really like the fact that it gets all 3 of these Pokemon, all 3 of these moves, excuse me, which is really valuable in any form of competitive Pokemon. maybe minus VGC, but depending on the situation, T-Spikes could have their utility if Hex is becoming a big deal in the format. Then there's access to Toxic. Toxic got nerfed in the previous generation, and the reason for that was because, in my opinion at least, because of the amount of stalling that was happening in high levels of play. So I feel like reducing the accessibility to Toxic is really important, but poison Pokemon still do get access to Toxic, which is really, really important. Also, Yawn could be really useful again in certain spots. The main concern with Yawn is it's basically a 2-turn move, and that is a bit of an issue. It does, however, also get Helping Hand, which can be very good for the doubles metagame. Now for some teammates for this Pokemon, and honestly, for the first time in a long time, I had a hard time finding enough teammates to really fill this section here. Usually I have a pretty good list. I'm able to get to 7, 8, 9 Pokemon pretty easily. However, Clodsire was tough. Starting off though, the first one we're going to cover is going to be Skeletor's. The reason being is, while these Pokemon don't have a perfect coverage in terms of their weaknesses, it's still very, very good. They cover each other's weaknesses very well. The fact that's because of Water Absorb, by the way. If Water Absorb wasn't a thing, then it would be very challenging because they would share 2 weaknesses in ground and to water. But in this case here, we see it's very common to see potential Terra Ground or Terra Flying Clodsire or Terra Ghost or Terra Normal Skeletor. And it's really nice because you're able to then prevent the other weakness from hitting that Pokemon, which is really useful, of course. It's also really good because if you decide to go with Unaware on both of these Pokemon, they form a really disgusting Unaware core, and that could have a lot of advantages. There's also Chi-Yu. Chi-Yu is a fantastic partner because it's able to destroy, especially if you're Chi-Yu with Terra Dark, you're able to destroy opposing Psychic type Pokemon while not being weak to ground type attacks, while with your Fire typing, which is really valuable, of course. The fact that Clodsire can take basically any Water, Rock, or Fighting type attacks for this Pokemon is really advantageous as well. Then we have Iron Valiant. Reason being is it takes really good advantage of all the hazards that Clodsire sets up. Of course, it can do that partly because it has access to the booster energy and Swords Dance, so it can do a lot of different things, but I really do like a potential Iron Valiant combination with the Clodsire. Then we have Blissey. Now, I wasn't super confident in this pairing at first, but I thought about it. This Pokemon, it's really useful to pair with a Pokemon like Clodsire because they basically resist each other's weaknesses, which is really useful. The fact that this Pokemon are able to form a nasty specially defensive or physically defensive core, and Blissey kind of incentivizes people to set up on you, and then you have an Unaware Pokemon in the back, it has a lot of advantages. Then there's going to be Dragapult. Reason why I have Dragapult here is because, and this honestly could be replaced with any Pokemon that gets access to Hex. But that's the main reason why I have Dragapult on here, because of Hex. The fact that you're able to get up T-Spikes with a Pokemon like Clodsire, and I know there's Pokemon like Glamora that could do it better, but getting up the T-Spikes, then bringing in a potential Terra Ghost on a Dragapult that might be choice specs is insanely powerful to deal Hex damage against the opposing Pokemon. I like that a lot. Then we have Wo-Shen. Now Wo-Shen, they cover each other's weaknesses very well outside of like Ice. But let's be honest, Ice, while it's a good offensive typing, it's not the most common type we're seeing nowadays. We're seeing a lot more of these like Chen-Paos turn into Dark types because Dark has become the premier type offensively in competitive Pokemon. Ice has kind of fallen off a little bit, so I'm not too concerned with the combination of Wo-Shen and the Clodsire. In general, do I want to have something else? Sometimes, but I do like this combination because they're both really fat Pokemon that can be mixed defenses and share very few common weaknesses or even resistances, which is really nice. And then lastly, I have Corviknight. Honestly, Corviknight pairs well with basically everything, but the reason Corviknight is here is because of the defensive synergy and the fact that it can get rid of the hazards that are going to be plaguing the Clodsire. You don't want to be taking 1,000,000 damage from hazards when you're coming in, because a lot of the time right now we're seeing metagames where for some reason spikes are getting up so easily. 3 layers of spikes, rocks, T-spikes, the whole 9 yards, and you're able to get rid of the T-spikes with your Clodsire, get rid of the spikes and the rocks with your Corviknight, which is super valuable. Now for some of the best Terra types for this Pokemon, I'm going to start off with, surprisingly, Fire. Fire in VGC, Terra Fire in VGC specifically, is really good. Obviously, it's not the best typing in the world, but it has a lot of advantages because of the potential Will-O-Wisp that's going to be coming your way. It's also really good because normally this Pokemon is weak to water type attacks, and it still now gets that immunity because of the Water Absorb, while having all the advantages of the Fire type attacks and the Fire type Pokemon type. The issue with it as well in singles is that in singles, you'll have to worry about rocks, which is really bad for you. However, in doubles, it's so rare to see hazards that doesn't really make much of a difference if you're going to be running Terra Fire, Terra Flying, Terra whatever. I do think that Terra Ground makes a lot of sense as well. It's obviously a fantastic way to boost your ground type attacks while getting rid of your poison typing for defensive purposes, which could be really advantageous. And then I think that Terra Steel makes a lot of sense as well as another defensive typing, which could be really valuable. And lastly, Terra Flying has a lot of advantages just because you grant to the ground immunity, you still have that fighting resist, you still have a lot of really good offensive capabilities because Terra Flying is a really powerful move. I do like these 4 options quite a bit. Now for items, the best items for this Pokemon, and again, I'll be honest, there aren't many. There are not many. Obviously, the best one in my opinion is going to be the Black Sludge. Giving yourself the recovery every single turn is really valuable, and always run the Black Sludge if you're not going to be Terastalizing this Pokemon. It's super valuable. If you are going to be Terastalizing this Pokemon, then go with the leftovers instead. But yeah, Black Sludge is really what you want to go for if you're not tearing this Pokemon. Then we have the Assault Vest. Why? It's already very specially defensive. Well, I mean, it's a very good Pokemon to run the AV on because it has really good coverage options on the physical side. So you can basically cover everything that you need to and then take hits from very powerful special Pokemon. If you decide to, for some reason, Terra into a Terra Dark type, just for whatever reason, you're running a max def set with an Assault Vest, you can effectively take a couple hits from Chi-Yu, which is really, really important in a lot of situations because that Pokemon is an absolute monster. And then the last item I have here is going to be the Citrus Berry, more so for doubles. You get a bit more of a boost. You get 25% of an HP stat of 130, which is really crazy and can come up a lot in competitive play. Now let's take a look at some Clodsire sets that you can run in your next competitive battle. Starting off with a Black Sludge set. This one is going to be running the Unaware ability. I'm running Terra Steel on this Pokemon here, but remember, if you really plan on Terastalizing, then make sure to run the leftovers instead of the Black Sludge. This Pokemon is a max special defense, or very special defensive set, I should say, with a lot of defense investment with Stealth Rock, Body Press, Recover, and Earthquake. Body Press can be replaced with whether it's Toxic Spikes or Gunk Shot, whatever the case might be, that is a flex spot. But the other three moves on this set here are pretty mandatory. You could run Spikes over Rocks, but again, you get the gist of it. This is what this set does. It sets up hazards, is annoying with Unaware, more specially defensive to take a couple of hits, and has Recovery in Recover and Black Sludge or leftovers. Then we have another Black Sludge set, this time running Terra Ground. Again, not super important to run the Terastalizing here. This is more of a double set. And the reason for that is because we're running the Curse with Gunk Shot, Recover, and Earthquake. I do think that this set in doubles has a lot of utility. It just depends on what you're going to be doing. And you can replace the Black Sludge here with the Citrus Berry. It just depends on what your flavor of the month is going to be. And then lastly, we have a Assault Vest set. We're running very physically defensive. We actually have 4 special defense with a Careful Nature because that actually gets more advantageous. Your nature goes a bit farther with the Careful Nature rather than with the Impish Nature in this situation. So with the Assault Vest, you're able to boost your SPDF much higher while being a really good physical wall at the same time. We're running Terra Blast Flying here. We're running Gunk Shot, Liquidation, and Earthquake. This is just the best coverage I can think of. It's like 70% of the metagame of every Pokemon ever is actually hit for super effective damage by these types as well, which is really, really good. Now, the last thing I do in these videos is talk about the different formats and predictions I have for where these Pokemon will end up in these different formats. I talk about Smogon, VGC, and Draft League. And as always, we start off with Smogon. So for Smogon, I believe this Pokemon is going to end up being in the RU tier. Now, why RU? That's pretty damn low. Right now, it's doing decently well. Not the greatest, not the worst. It's currently UU, but I think it's going to go RU because it's not bulky enough. It's very fat, don't get me wrong. The issue is it doesn't have enough utility with its bulk to really take advantage of it as well. Pokemon like Skeletors, which aren't as bulky as this, are much better because they have the utility of being a little bit offensive with Torch Song. They have the value that's brought from having Will-O-Wisp and Hex. There's a lot of value from that Clodsire just doesn't have access to. Sure, it gets Toxic, sure, it gets Recover and Yawn and all these good things, but that's not good enough to carry its stats, its poor stats at 430 overall, to the place it really needs to be. I think there's just a couple of things missing for it to be considered to be more top tier. Depending on if the meta turns into more of a fighting based meta, maybe it's going to be a meta that's more electric based, who knows, then sure, it can climb up. But for right now, based on the Pokemon that are in the game, I think it's struggling just a little bit. Now for VGC, let's be honest, it's bad. It's not good in VGC at all. Why? Well, here's the thing. It's slow, and most slow Pokemon, unless they have like redirection or they have really good support options, they're not going to be doing the best. Especially because offensively, it's only got 75 base attack. So if you want to run a Trick Room team, yeah, sure, but go for it. Like, it's not going to make a difference. 75 base attack is nothing. So it feels fine for Clodsire to come in, take whatever hits, and then dish out damage, but it's not going to be doing that as well as you'd like, or at least as well as other Pokemon. That's why in VGC, there are basically always going to be better options. And last but not least is Draft League. This is my specialty, and on a scale of 17 to 18 points, where 18 is the most expensive tier that you can possibly pick from, this Pokemon is going to be around the 10 or 11 range. And that's honestly really good for a Pokemon that's going to be in the RU tier, in my opinion, and considered to be bad in VGC. Why is that? Well, honestly, in Draft League, Clodsire is going to be better than any other format. And the reason for that is because you're able to counter team your opponent. You know which 9 to 11 or 12 Pokemon your opponent can potentially bring to a game. So you can choose which 4 moves are going to be the most suitable for you. That's very advantageous. The fact that you have access to Unaware and Water Droop, you can tailor make your Pokemon to make sure that in the matchup, you're in a better situation than your opponent. And I really do like that about the Draft League format for that reason. So if you guys haven't tried the Draft League format, then make sure to join my Discord server in the description below for your chance to make sure to join a competitive draft league at some point in time, whether it's a league that I host or a league that other people are looking for players for. But it is, again, really solid to have in draft league. I definitely think it's better here than any other format. And that's all I've got for you guys today on Clodsire. This Pokemon is insanely fat, and if you guys enjoyed this video or you learned something, then make sure to leave a like on the video and help us reach our like goal of 75 likes. Make sure to comment your thoughts on Clodsire down in the comments below, as well as let me know which Pokemon you want to see me cover next, and you'll have a chance to be named the winner of the comment of the day and have your comment appear on the screen right about now. And of course, guys, subscribe to the channel as well for more competitive Pokemon guides and battles, and of course, help us reach our sub goal of 4,000 subscribers. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to give a big thank you to our YouTube channel members. Their support is greatly appreciated. So thank you to our level 1s, which are Liv, Eric, Zeke, and Texas Man. Our level 2 is Stone, and our level 3 is Sully. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you all tomorrow.